Hey A&Pers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P II Lab 2 video 4, I think. So we are continuing our journey through the heart, and we just talked about the valves. We talked about the atrioventricular valves, which were between the atria and the ventricles, and then the semilunar valves, which were between the ventricles and the great arteries. Again, the great arteries are the aorta and the pulmonary trunk, which you can see both here and here. Okay, so now we need to talk about the coronary circulation. So the heart feeds itself first. So if you look at the base of the aorta, you can see these two vessels that leave the aorta. So on the left side, again, the thick ventricle wall is left. So this is the left coronary artery, and thin ventricle wall is right, so this is the right coronary artery. So if you were here and you could hold this up, you would see that this piece is a continuation of the right coronary artery. Okay. And then looking at the front, this is the left coronary artery that comes out under the left auricle, and the right coronary artery that comes out under the right auricle. So the right coronary artery will be 43 and 45, and we'll continue. The left coronary artery is 44 and 48, but we lose the term left coronary artery right here where it branches. So this branch that comes down, this is the left ventricle and the right ventricle. So this is the interventricular sulcus, little groove. So this artery here, number 49, is the anterior interventricular artery. Because it's anterior, it's the front of the heart, and it's interventricular, it's between the left and right ventricles, and the coronary circulation is part of the systemic circuit. So our arteries are going to be red here and our veins will be blue. So the left coronary artery splits into the anterior interventricular artery, or anterior interventricular branch. And then this one that goes around the heart is the circumflex artery. Moving and shaking now. Okay, so with those put together, you see the circumflex artery goes around the heart, and we can follow it around the back of the heart. So circumflex, I always think about circumnavigating the globe, so it goes all the way around the circumference of the heart. It doesn't go all the way around, but that's how I remember circum for circumflex. Okay, so those are the arteries. Now we have two veins. So you see how we have coronary, and one cardiac. Okay, so this vein right here, 37, that runs with the circumflex artery, is the great cardiac vein. And oh great, we have to switch to cardiac after all this coronary. So this continues the great cardiac vein. And then this giant chunk on the back is the coronary sinus. A sinus, we learned last semester, was a hole in the bone normally filled with air, and also a large vein. And this is a large vein. So this is the coronary sinus, and it feeds into, with the inferior vena cava here, it feeds into the right atrium with the rest of the deoxygenated blood from the systemic circuit. So that's why. Okay, let's put this back on its base, and then we will talk about the conducting system of the heart. There we go. So we're going to start here. This is the sinoatrial node, and it is the pacemaker of the heart. It sets your heartbeat. And then that sends that information to this other green splotch, which represents our atrioventricular node. And then that message goes through here. You see those? They're kind of like just scratches with a 75 next to them. So we had 73 for sinoatrial node, 74 for atrioventricular node, and then these scratches, 75. They're just big enough to put your fingernail in. Do not mark on the models, please, and thank you. And then these will be the atrioventricular bundle, also called the bundle of His, capitalize the H. His was his name. And then that splits into the left and right bundle branches. So again, the left ventricular wall is thicker. So 77 here are the left bundle branches. The right ventricular wall is thinner. So 76 here are the right bundle branches. Now when it turns and these flames go up the walls, these are the Purkinje fibers. So the P is capitalized, Purkinje was his name. These have not been renamed that I've heard. So these bundle branches are why the interventricular septum is usually not asked here. It's usually asked over here because on this side, we're generally pointing to some of the white lines and asking for those names. And this is actually where the moderator band comes in because it functions with these white lines as part of the conducting system. And next on the list is the sheep heart dissection, which we are not going to do. And then there's an artery and vein slide. And then on page 15, lab activity 2, there are some things you need to know that do show up on this model. So you've got aorta, which we know the aorta, and I do want to note that the aorta comes off the heart and curves kind of to the left, but more importantly behind. So the aorta actually drops directly posterior to the heart. So of the aorta, this will be the ascending aorta, the aortic arch, and the abdominal aorta. Once it goes through the diaphragm, the thoracic aorta. Once it goes through the diaphragm, it will be the abdominal aorta, and I'll show you that on the big trunk guy here in a second. So the next thing I need you to know are these 3 branches off of the aortic arch. So this first branch, number 6, is number 1 on your list. Look at the list here. So this is the brachiocephalic trunk. 1, 2, and 3 are on your model going to be 6, 7, and 8. So number 1 is the brachiocephalic trunk. And this is what we call an unpaired artery. There's only one of them. There's not a left and a right. So if you put left or right on the brachiocephalic trunk, you make it wrong because it's not a paired artery. It's like saying, oh, this is my left nose. No, you only have one nose. It's not your left nose, it is your nose. So this is your brachiocephalic trunk, which is an artery. This next one is your left common carotid artery, and it is a paired artery, so you do need to put the left or right on that. And this is the left subclavian artery. So the left common carotid artery will help go up your neck to help feed your head. And the left subclavian artery will go down your arm to help feed your left arm. Okay. And I think we'll have time to come back to these, but in case I forget to say it later, once we do veins, these are the left and right brachiocephalic veins. So there's only one brachiocephalic trunk, and if you put left or right on this, you make it wrong. There's a left and a right brachiocephalic vein. And if you don't put left or right on that, then you make it wrong. So very important distinction, again, level of detail here. Okay, so we're at 9 minutes. I'm going to, start another video on, I think maybe we'll do the wire person next and see what we can figure out about these arteries and then the veins. So thanks as always for tuning in. This has been A&P II Lab 2 Video 4, Education Must Go On. Dr. J out.